Hi, it's Jo from Minerva. Today we're going to have a look at making a toile and why you would make one and what decisions you'll make once you've had a go at trying to fit your toile to your body before you cut your main fabric. Today I am making a toile of New Look 6526 because it is a fitted dress with very little ease, so I want to make sure that when I cut lace that I don't cut it wrong. It's got a waist section which I want to make sure fits, because that's going to be for the comfort of my dress for sitting down and eating and for dancing in. You might decide to make a toile for a special occasion dress, a dress that you know you want to fit really, really well. Or you might make a toile if you have different body sizes and measurements to the ones on the pattern, so you don't fit exactly into any one size bracket, which will be most people. Especially if they're quite wide ranging, the stretch of your sizes between more than one pattern. If you've just got a little difference, you could grade out on a pattern, you can fit it as you go. But if you know you've got particular fitting issues that you get for particular parts of your body, then making a toile, and not of the whole dress, and you don't make the whole dress, but just to try and find out a few bits of information before you cut your beautiful fabric. I've chosen to make a toile today because my sizes, when I measured myself, put myself in really wide ranging brackets. So my bust size landed in size 12, my waist size didn't even land on the pattern, it went beyond size 18, beyond the largest pattern bracket on this one, and my hip size was an 18, so I was working between size 12 and 18, and immediately that rang some alarm bells with me that there would be some fitting issues. So I've made a toile and I'm going to show you some of the things that I found out when I made it. Of course, everybody's fitting is going to be different, but I'm just going to show you a few things to look out for. So the first thing I noticed when I put it on was that the front here was gaping. So when I had it on, I had this at the front, so this was too big, and there's a centre seam down the front, so I pinched out a bit at the top, but I needed the width at the bottom to go round the bottom of my rib cage, so I've pinched out the front to get a nice front neckline. The second thing that I noticed, which I notice on lots of patterns, is I have a sloping shoulder. So if I sewed the side seams straight, I get quite a baggy bit here. I get two bits here, which I think, oh, that needs a dart in. And in the past, I used to put a little tiny dart in there. But actually what I need to do is take some out of the shoulder. So now I've coloured it in. I don't need all of that. So that's the front fabric, that's the back fabric, and when I take it out at an angle, when I take it out, narrow at my neck and wide at the end, it stops this being really baggy here. So when I tried this on, there was way too much fabric here at the back of my neck, and so, but not enough at the bottom for my waist, because as I just described, my waist bombs right out on that pattern. So I'm going to add a little bit to the waist where the seam matches. That was fine, but then I needed to grade up and take out all of this flap here. So you can see the pin line, it goes from here, taking off quite a big chunk all the way down to here. I haven't got lots of pooling here. If you're getting lots of sort of extra fabric here, then you might need to take some out across here. That's called a sway back adjustment, which I'll show you in another video. I'm just taking some out of the width there. You can see here there's a bit of writing all over it. So when I got it on, I was sort of writing on myself. From here, from my shoulder to the end of the empire line, it didn't go under my bust. So it started at the shoulder, it came down and it landed sort of just below the apex of my bust, but I actually want it to be longer so that the seam line sits here, not here. I don't want it to sit there. I want it to sit there. So I'm adding 1 centimetre to these bodice pieces. Now, if I add 1 centimetre to that one, the front one, I have to add 1 centimetre to the side one. I'm going to add 1 centimetre to the back one. I might check that again, because if I add 1 centimetre to the back one, then I might give myself too much fabric in the back, but I'm going to double check that. This new look pattern has princess seams, so I wanted to check the fit of the bust curve. So it was fine at the bottom, and because I had to cut a slightly bigger size for my hips and waist, because the top was a 12, remember, and the bottom was 18, then I've got to take quite a bit out of this line here. So between the bust apex, there's a little cross there, and where the side front runs out, I've pinned a wedge out of there as well. So I could pin a little bit more out of there, but I need to keep the width there and take some of that out. That's not going to affect anything else, only the lining and how I cut the lace and the fabric so that they're the same. But that bit, it will be the front and the side front, so those two will be fine. And obviously I've got to repeat on the other side. So I've found a lot out by making a toile, particularly because I'm going to be cutting some lace. So it's really worth making one. The skirt is a full skirt with all pleats in it, so I don't need to worry about the hip size of that. But what I would need to worry about is if I put a centimetre on that waistband, which I am going to, because it doesn't, it's just meeting there, making it quite tight. If I add a little bit onto that waist back and that waist back, then I'll need to add the same onto the skirt pieces, or I won't be able to put my zip in smoothly. If I was making a fitted dress with, you know, like a wiggle dress with a pencil skirt on the bottom, then I might extend my toile to just go past my hips. I wouldn't make it totally full length. I've used some curtain lining. If you make a toile, it needs to be in the same sort of fabric as your main make. So if you're making a toile for a jersey item, it needs to be in some jersey, because then you'll find out the ease. If you make a jersey item in a woven, then you won't really be finding out the true things that you want to find out before you cut your fabric. We will now go over to the cutting table, and I'll try and show you how I translated some of this information onto my pattern pieces. The first piece I'm going to look at is the side front, because that had an alteration on the arm hole, and it had that 1 centimetre length I wanted so that I get a better empire line. So I added 1 centimetre to the bottom of the side front piece. I like to use a seam gauge because it's really easy to work with on a tabletop. So I added 1.5 centimetres and then drew a line on the extra piece of paper and then cut it out. Just going to be a little bit more accurate there with my cutting. There we are. So when you've changed one piece, then you need to see which bit does this join onto, so it becomes a little jigsaw puzzle. So this is the front, and on the front, when I match the notches here and here, I then know that I need to add 1 centimetre to this one as well. So I've got that all prepared. I also need to put on the notches. Just before I cut that slanting shoulder seam off, I've drawn a line on, and then I had to ask myself, is that the seam line or my cutting line? So I just went and held that up against the mannequin and up against the toile, and actually that's my sewing line. So I'm going to make sure that I've got a 1.5 seam allowance, which I've estimated, I sort of know what it looks like. That's it. So I've fixed bust, empire line, shoulder seam. This is the back. So let's see what we can change off our back pattern pieces. So I'm going to add that 1 centimetre so that my waistbands and the line is parallel along my front and back. So I'm going to see if that's okay. I'm going to make a second toile when I've done this to see if I've got the fitting right. Again, I've drawn on by holding this up to the toile. I need to take off this wide bit at the back, and that is the seam line. So I'm going to make sure that I've got my seam lines. I'm going to be pretty precise about this one because I've got to put a zip in the back, so I don't want to leave myself short. And if I'm making a second toile, I can have another go anyway. So I'm going to take some off there. If you don't want to cut your original pattern, you can use Swedish pattern paper and trace it all out again. But I'm just showing you because it's easier for you to see the markings. Here's the shoulder to match the other shoulder. So that's the seam line. I need my armhole to match this armhole. So if you imagine that's the front, centre front, side front, this notch matches up to this one. I've got that extra, but look, I'm a little bit over here, so I need to be scooping out a matching side. That, and I can double check that with my sleeve marking, so I'll need to check that notch there. So now I've made those changes, I've got some changes now to do to the waist sections. So let's look at the front waistband first. The front waistband is cut on the fold, so when I match these notches, that's giving me some extra width on the waist. Notch, notch. And I'm going to transfer my notch here because I'll be looking for where that joins onto the one from the back. So that's that. Now let's look at the back waistband. The notch there, and this one is going to join on here, but I need to add a little bit more. So remember, I was a little bit short here, so I'm going to add a little bit more on here. It's what it really was it wasn't more, it was to straighten that seam up. So I'm just going to put across here, so that I know when I cut, I just need to come down straight. The final one was that there was too much on this princess seam here. So I'm going to grade that to a 14 because that was what size I was. So I'm going to use a grading technique there where I use size 16 so that it goes under my bust and ready for my waist. Then I'm just going in to size 14 and back out to size 16. Can't do that on here, but I'm just going to take a little bit off. And I will be able to see on my second toile how far away I am with that. Still got the notches for marking. Okay, let's cut out again. have sorted some things out. So I've got the front lying flat now by taking a little piece out of there. I've got sloping shoulders here, so that's not affecting the neckline. I'm getting a few drag lines there, can you see? That's because I've still got a little bit too much in the bust. I'm going to pinch a little bit more out of that princess seam. But that is really quite minute, so that's an adjustment I can make to the fabric in my fitting rather than cutting into the pattern piece. That's a micro fit thing there, and I would do the same on there. Now I've got the empire line running underneath my bust. Before it was up on top like that, so now I've got that coming down. I've pinched a little bit out of the front waist but added that bit onto the back waist so that I can put the zip in. But I've got here plenty of room now under the armhole because I changed the shoulder seam, so I've got plenty of room under here for fitting the sleeve. I hope you've learned a few things today about making a toile fitting and deciding if you're going to do that. You know, you might need to make a bit more, but I just really wanted to check the bust fit. If you've got any questions, please leave those below and we can try and help you out. If you've got any requests for other fitting videos, we'd love to hear those too. Don't forget to make a account for yourself at Minerva so that you can explore and take a look at all the Minerva makers who are fitting their clothes really, really well and giving you lots of advice for your fitting requirements. You can join the Minerva Club and have offers and special events posted straight into your inbox. We'd love to see what you've made, and if you can give a little description about how you fit it, that would be superb too. Thanks very much for watching. See you again soon.